Okay, so we've done that now. We've looked at inspiring the visitor, attracting specific market segments, see how we engage with those. But we're also looking towards what's coming over the horizon. And so we're actually going to now turn to Stephen Grier from Microsoft Scotland to talk to us about new and up-and-coming digital technologies. And as you stand up, I always think we should have that little bit of music that goes, but we don't. So over, Stephen, yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Stephen Grier. I'm the country manager for Microsoft in Scotland. It's always incredibly humbling for me to be in front of an audience like this. It's quite often written on my feedback, he's a terrible presenter, but he brings really cool videos. So the fact that you're having some video issues today fills me with a fear I cannot articulate. Okay? I was going to say I was not an Irish twit, just a twit, and I usually have a huge amount of jokes lined up to make up for the fact that my videos don't work, but today I actually just wore this shirt. Let me get on.
Behind every great achievement, every triumph of human progress, you'll find people driven to move the world forward. People finding inspiration where it's least expected. People who lead with their imagination. But in an increasingly complex world, we face new challenges. And sometimes it feels like we've reached our limits. Now, with the help of intelligent technology, we can achieve more. We can access information that empowers us in new ways. We can see things that we didn't see before. And we can stay on top of what matters most. When we have the right tools and AI extends our capabilities, we can tap into even greater potential. Whether it's a life-changing innovation, being the hero for the day, making a difference in someone's future, or breaking down barriers to bring people closer together. Intelligent technology helps you to see more, do more, and be more. And when your ingenuity is amplified, you are unstoppable.
Cool. So hopefully a tiny bit of inspiration for you to start with. Now, people quite often ask, why did we do that video? And one of the things that was mentioned in the presentation this morning, I think it was Richie that said, certainly around some new technologies, there's quite an element of fear. Now, I work for, also as part of my role with Microsoft, I work in a global Microsoft team called Tech for Good. And you'll find that theme running through some of the stuff that I'm talking about today, is how we're looking at some of these new technologies and how they are used in terms of benefiting society. And we were often finding that the talking about modern technology like genomics, robotics, etc. Can be a bit scary, but we always want people to focus on what the opportunities might be. Now, it's an amazing time in the technology world. We've got everything from driverless cars to 3D printing to automated intelligence to augmented reality to virtual reality, and it's all incredibly complex, and it's all incredibly, it all seems out there. And some of the stuff I'm going to show you today resonates with a theme that says, actually, the future's here, and you're going to see some stuff in the next couple of videos that hopefully assures you of that. To give you an idea of some of the things that we've been looking at recently, and some of this stuff is really, really out there, but let me get to the right thread. We're currently working with an organisation called World Pop, and what they are doing is establishing the population of the world. Right? So everyone thinks we know how many people in the world. We can go to census surveys. We can go to, we can go to that mine of all information, Wikipedia. We can search for how many people are there in the world, and we'll get an answer. But the actual fact, the reality is, we have absolutely no idea. World Pop are using huge data capabilities. They are using satellite imagery for remote tribes, for remote areas who don't have census, who don't record births and deaths, etc., etc. And then to cover that area, they're using drones. So you think drones, that's not new. They'll soon be flying around rural Ayrshire, knocking on my door to deliver stuff from Amazon. But actually, the problem is they can only stay up for a certain amount of time. So we've now got drones that are actually gliders, which use machine learning algorithms to look at weather, to find the updrafts that keep them in the air. And these things are able to stay up for months and months and months. So imagine that difference that makes in terms of our ability to go and find stuff in the world. And that's only possible by using modern machine learning algorithms to look at that. When we then move to the biological areas, one of the really interesting things about having almost unlimited computing power, and we'll talk a little bit about cloud technologies later, is it gives you an amazing opportunity to look at old problems in new ways. So we're now finding that all of those huge amounts of data that we have that we weren't able to analyze, that we weren't able to pull relevant information from, is really being revisited with the power that we have now. So we're now going back and looking at cancer schematics, for example, where we're looking at to predict where, using machine learning, to predict where tumours will go next. Right? So scary subject, but you can imagine what the benefits of that are being. So that's actually in use right now in a triage of medical facilities near Oxford University, where we are looking at serious brain cancers. We are allowing doctors to establish the size of them, taking round about 40 minutes, a task that was usually taken between 8 and 12 hours. So actually some of the disruption that's happening is very positive in ways that it can benefit society. And then we look at the digital world, and we talk a little bit about cloud. Now, cloud, big deal. We've been doing this stuff for a long time. Anyone that's had a Gmail account, hey, you've been in the cloud for 15 years, right? Gmail, Hotmail, that all started. But the opportunity that it presents is massive, because it's a fantastic democratizer, if that's even a word. It just kind of rolled off my tongue there. It's a fantastic leveler of the playing field. With the right connectivity, you can be sat on the Isle of Lewis with access to the same computing power that Boeing have, right? So it's a pretty good leveler in that respect. And Scots in particular have always been fantastically ingenious and innovative in how they use that technology and how they've used technology in the past. And it's always a focus that I have when we're talking specifically about digital and digital technology, is that actually it's a pretty level playing field out there. And even more importantly, it's getting less and less and less expensive, which is fantastic, because that then really extrapolates the possibilities in terms of who can use it. So let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, or as I've taken to calling it recently, amplified ingenuity. So you're going to meet a couple of characters in my presentation. This character is Saqib. Saqib's a software developer with Microsoft, and he's been looking at how AI can help a partially sighted person move across a city. Okay, so I'm going to show you the video, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat about it.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the pivot head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you know that.
I see two faces. 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised. 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo,
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
and then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do, but artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before, and in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
Cool. So there you see a really practical use of technology, which is quite often considered pretty scary. So Keep's a cool guy. You're using your favourite search engine, which is of course Bing. You can go and if you look for that project, it's a beautiful place to be. You can have a look for Seeing AI, and that's the project that Saqib's been working on. We're now looking at augmenting that. Again, we've similar to what we were saying earlier about the accessibility of things like AR and VR type hardware. So keeping it to the smart glasses, and then we're looking at how can we expand that beyond how Saqib uses it in terms of being partially sighted and almost blind, into, for example, language characteristics. People who come to a city have no idea how to traverse it or move about it safely, who we can then plug in language plugins to help them come across. And it's a project we've been working on in conjunction with guide dogs. You guys will have heard quite a lot. There's no decent presentation from a technology company that doesn't have a load of statistics either made up or not, and I am no different. What is quite key here is actually this is fairly conservative. It's not really that much out there. The device ads that we have just now are absolutely amazing. I am fully expecting that when Apple announce the consumption figures for Watch in particular, which has really taken off in the last sort of 4 or 5 months, that number on the left is likely to go up, I would imagine, quite substantially. This number here on the end, this is something I'm going to come on to talk about in the less inspiring part of my presentation. I promise you I'll get better towards the end. The ability to consume services rather than build your own is something that's massively, massively important. Now, we spoke earlier about how do organizations, I've shown you AI, we've talked about machine learning, we've looked at some of the inspirational stuff that's happening, we've seen some fantastic presentations on VR this morning, and you guys have been talking heavily about how data is the currency of this industrial revolution. How on earth is it that you even get close to that Now you're probably thinking, this is, how on earth? There's just no way. I'm too far behind. I have data everywhere. I have no idea how to stay current. Actually getting yourself forward onto starting to think about, if you haven't already. Now you will be, because I'm pretty certain that most of you get a mobile device in your pocket that's probably a smartphone, which means that you're already consuming technology services as a service. Actually, when you bring that into the day-to-day tools that you use to keep your business alive, then it's almost even more important that ultimately you get there. That gets you, essentially, and you'll like what I've done with this next slide, that gets you to green, okay? The fantastic thing about being able to use cloud services, particularly productivity tools like Office 365, like G Suite, is that you will never be behind again. So there was a comment made earlier that said, how is it that I even get on the curve? Actually, your fighting chance of staying on the curve and starting to be able to benefit from these technologies as they make it into day-to-day life and into day-to-day work life is actually by looking at which of these services are right for you. Because once you are consuming things as a service and not keeping servers in cupboards, which is inherently unsafe, or not looking at what you use on a day-to-day basis and upgrading it every 4 or 5 years, instead of taking these giant leap forward every few years, imagine how cool it is in a similar way to your smartphone, that you're just getting the new app, the new functionality added. And that extends both to your day-to-day life as well. I mean, I was looking the other day at, I'm a big Strava user, well, I'm a big cyclist, unfortunately. Big Strava user, looked at, I could then add posts into Strava the other day, and that just got delivered to me, and suddenly I started using it. And what technology companies like Apple, like Microsoft, like Google and Amazon, we are all there to make things hopefully as intuitive as possible, to add functionality on a regular basis that means that you feel comfortable using these tools and can stay current, meaning that when all of this technology arrives and becomes really, really relevant to you, that you're able to use it. Now, first of all, there's always the issue of trust, and that's a particularly big topic currently. We see cyber attacks every single week, and it always provokes a very interesting discussion within the technology industry, because it becomes something like, are my data centers safer than yours? So is my data center, or Amazon's data center, or Google's data center, which has NATO certified tank defenses outside it, safer than the server in your cupboard, or that USB stick that you're ever so guiltily carrying around in your pocket, which contains all the information that you need to run your business? Okay? So it often comes down to an issue of trust. This slide is really telling you that big hyperscale and smaller local providers of these software services that we hope you think are quite cool work really, really hard with the government. Now, whether you trust the government or not, different question, okay? But we work really, really hard to make sure that we have the accreditations and safety to make sure that these issues don't happen. Pretty key is the fact that you own your data. We don't care what's in it, generally. We just want to keep it safe for you so that it powers these amazing apps that you use. Do you like my Solvite moment there? This is G-Hold, developed by Alison Grier in Scotland, Scottish entrepreneur. Went on Dragon's Den, got rejected, got 2 phone calls, one from Apple, one from Microsoft, and had a global distribution deal less than 6 months later. Anyway, just sort of thought that in. It's not always about the software, okay? Now, this is dull, but important, okay? That USB stick that you've got in your pocket that's got all the customers that visited your attraction in the last 5 years, this is not good for that, okay? I promise you this is the dullest slide in my presentation, and I'm not even going to dwell on it. What I am going to say is that you probably have data on your phone, you probably have data on that USB stick, you have it on the laptop, you have it in the server in the cupboard. Actually, there's something to be said for bringing them all together into tools that actually integrate with each other. So I was warned, don't you come here with an advert. I'm not going to come here with an advert, okay? The next video is by one of our partners called Content and Code, and you're going to meet Dick and Dave, okay? And they're going to talk about how one organization has stuff in 1,000 different places, and one organization has their stuff in an offering like Office 365 or G Suite or whatever. So I'm trying to be as agnostic as I possibly can. Let's meet Dick and Dave.
presentation for a TV and multi-channel campaign. This is Dave. His agency is also competing for the same job. The deadline is fast approaching, so let's see what happens, shall we? Dick has created a draft of the presentation and uploads it to his team's Box account. Some of his team download copies to work on, creating multiple copies. One person has saved this to their personal Google Drive account, inadvertently breaching client data protection policies. Dave uploads the presentation to a SharePoint team site within Microsoft Teams, where everyone can collaborate on the one version. Very smart. Dave's team finds it easy to locate the images they want to include in the pitch. Everything is stored in SharePoint and is searchable using Delve. Their conversations about the pitch are open to everyone in the team by using Microsoft Teams. Looks like Dick's having trouble getting everything together with his team, with the different applications and having siloed discussions in Slack, using and storing information in multiple tools. It can feel like they're not in the same team sometimes. Meanwhile, Dave's team is having an internal meeting. Some of them join over video conference call through Skype for Business. Oh dear. Looks like some of Dick's teams are going to be late to their meeting. To make things worse, one of Dick's team has left and joined a rival company. Dick requests IT to shut off access to all different tools, but Dick is worried that his colleague is taking his pitch ideas and pricing to the competing company, and may be breaching his client NDA. Now the pitch is ready to go to the client, Dave shares the presentation directly from SharePoint. The client can access this from anywhere on any device and make some comments to the TV ad presentation and lets Dave know he's happy. I don't think things are going so well for Dick. In the confusion of multiple versions of documents, Dick's team misses the deadline. What's clear to Dick is that the tools all work individually, but are not designed as one complete solution. Dick shares the presentation through the team's Box account. However, in the rush of putting the presentation together, sends the wrong version with comments in. The client isn't happy. In addition, in the rush of putting the presentation together, the formatting doesn't look very good. Must have been all that copying and pasting from different documents. Oh dear Dick. I think you would all Anyway, back at Dave's agency, they get a call from a Dick that they won the job. Don't be a dick. Work smarter together.
So I always hesitate to show that video, but you looked like an audience that had a sense of humour. But really what we focus on there is an opportunity now for you to bring all of that stuff together. It makes some of the really dull stuff like GDPR work a lot better if you're able to do that. And that's when we, as well as Google and as well as all these other providers who provide really cool tools, we sometimes take a while to get them all to work together. Sometimes we never get there. We do genuinely have the aspiration, usually, for them all to be able to work together, but actually it takes a bit of time. Being able to start thinking about how you consume technology on a daily basis as a service, rather than as something that gets invested in every once in a while or when you buy a new device, means that when all of that new technology comes along, it's going to be far more accessible to you. One of the, just looking at the clock, one of the tools that was mentioned there is Delve, which was part of Office 365. That's a machine learning algorithm which is already in productivity tools. What it does is, within an organization, is if you communicate via Yammer or via email or via instant messaging or Skype, it gives you information on how effective that communication has been. Now, you can take some of that stuff personally. So when you see that you've sent an email and only one person, you've marked it urgent, and you see that one person's read it in the 2 weeks since you sent it, you can take that personally, but maybe it's a sign that you should change your communication style a little bit. And it starts to give you information that's particularly useful. The further up your organisation you go on how effective communications are within an organisation. So it's pretty slick. So people sometimes ask me, 17 years, I've been with Microsoft and 28 years in the technology industry, starting off on Margaret Thatcher's YTS scheme in 1989. And they say, why do you still stay in technology? And I could fill that space with a whole load of nonsense about how it's, changing my life and all that kind of stuff, and how I love working in this big American corporate environment and can't get enough of it. I could really fill the space with that. But this next story allowed me a little bit of indulgence, because actually, this is why I stay in technology. Have a look at this. This is some work that we've been doing with our Microsoft research teams in Cambridge, and Hei and Zhang, who's our principal researcher, when we worked with the BBC on some, again, I spoke earlier about looking at old challenges in new ways. Have a look at this in terms of how important digital and technology is in terms of moving society forward a little. This is Emma.
Right, I'm going to try and replicate this here. What a great start. I tend to kind of just avoid doing sketching and writing now because it's not really worth it if you get something like that. Anything you could do that would just make my hand do what I want it to do and be able to sign my name would be an incredible thing.
How do we even just begin to help her overcome this particular symptom of her tremors and helping her be able to regain her writing ability, her drawing ability? You know, I don't think we're ever going to get that back 100%. You know, my challenge is it's immense. Someone's made a spoon. It actually counteracts the tremors you get from Parkinson's. So the spoon actually vibrates in opposition to how your hand might be shaking, and therefore it is steady. I'm making a very rough prototype, and what this board does is I can connect into it through these wires, these tiny coin cell motors. So these motors will vibrate. Hello. Hi, Miles.
It's affecting something. I don't quite know what's happening. Something is going on with it.
What this is doing is it's short-circuiting whatever feedback loop there is between the brain and the hand that's causing the tremors. I'm on to something, right? I'm on to something.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my god.
It makes me forget that I have a tremor. I've done one of them for a long time. I was so casual about it. Yeah, it was a straight line. I've actually just written my name for like the first time in ages. Mum, it's called the Emma. It's got my name on it.
So that's why I'm still here. That's using huge amount of computing power, measuring neural impulses that control Parkinson's tremors. Emma now works with Parkinson's UK in terms of how can technology help when it comes to neural conditions like that. But again, old problems, new ways, and we're only really limited in it these days by our imagination. I'm flashing red. Thanks very much.
Let's take a moment. There was a Jerry Maguire moment there, I think, you know. Let's calm down. Very, very interesting, and obviously when you think about the application to what we're here today for tourism is especially the bit about Sakib, the accessible tourism. We know that that's actually something that Visit Scotland are working on very strong, and we've been looking at that as a city as well. So this is all this stuff is showing you what's there now. The future is now. It's all around us. The artificial intelligence stuff is being played at the university up the road, and it's coming out all around us with bots and various other low-tech examples. How you consume technology. This is the question. It's not just how we consume, it's how are the people that we're trying to attract and inspire, how they use technology. We've got to understand that if we're going to be successful in doing the job of increasing the tourism potential of the city. Very good. I'm just filling the gap there as everybody gets their breath and suddenly mops their eyes. Okay, is everybody now? Okay, good, good, good.